Had them online before I dial up. How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. Had them online before I dial up. How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare.
What's going on, family, Black Power Media family? This is Jackie Lukman.
And I'm Baba Lukman.
And welcome to a very impromptu edition of Lukman Nation on Black Power Media.
The most dangerous show on social media.
On the most dangerous platform on social media.
No doubt.
Yeah. Look, we know this is the last minute. Very impromptu, like we said. But sometimes things flow like this, and this is kind of the way Lukman Nation is used to doing this kind of stuff. So we're kind of getting used to getting into the flow of it in Black Power Media, because there's so many amazing people and comrades sharing this platform with a lot of incredible content. We have to be careful that we're not stepping on anybody else's flow.
No, we always we always check before we do our impromptu streams, before we just do a commando thing.
Yeah. We're not the only guerrillas.
Right, exactly.
in this unit. We got a whole unit, a whole platoon of guerrilla warfare warriors. So we have to be really careful that we respect the boundaries of our comrades. But we couldn't hold on to this.
No, we couldn't hold on to this one. No.
This whole COVID relief thing just blows my mind. Okay, so all right, before we get into the details and the cussing, because there's gonna be some cussing today, y'all.
On a Sunday.
Sorry, Jesus. Sorry, brown Palestinian Jesus. But like this video, share, invite your friends. We're going to talk about some electoral politics and the results of electoral politics and what it means tangibly to the material conditions of our people and the shenanigans and the three-card Monty that these folks play with our votes, and what it means in a revolutionary sense. So for your folks who are, really deep into, look, we got to play the game in the system as it exists, you might want to get them in on this conversation to talk about these things and why this kind of stuff is important and what it really means beyond what the media, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, and even the Fox News and the Newsmaxes of the world are telling you. Absolutely, definitely like this video, hit the like button, share this video. If you're not a member of Black Power Media, join Black Power Media. I think it's $4.99 a month.
Yeah, come on.
The basic,
yeah, I mean, you can't even get a McDonald's meal for that.
Come on.
So I mean, like $4.99 a month to support. I mean, some very true, down-to-earth, grassroots Black media.
And you're getting all this substantive meat.
Yeah, come on. I mean, it's a bargain. But I'd like to say shout out to those who had just hopped on. Leah Boggs. I think this the other one is CEO. Yeah. And
Sharice Burden-Stelly, Dr. CBS.
Right. So, and the rest of you who aren't in the chat, but we see by the numbers that you're there. We welcome you and we thank you for sharing your time with us on this impromptu Sunday, and with the two OG media assassins, because that's what we do. We jumping out of airplanes and stuff, and jumping out of journalistic airplanes behind enemy lines, giving you what you're not going to get on.
People from the trees, shooting down the falsehoods.
Yeah.
Oh, we getting carried away.
And you're not going. I mean, look, and you mentioned something about CNN, and this is why supporting Black media is so important, because CNN is not going to they're not going to dig beneath the surface. They're not going to tell you what the con game is about. MSNBC, which is a Democrat, which is a propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, like CNN is, they're not going to tell you what's going to be happening. They're not going to give you the real meat of what's going on. That what they're going to do is tell us, or tell the Democratic support system, MSNBC, they're gonna push Joy Reid out there. They're gonna push it, and they're gonna tell us that, oh yeah, we got screwed again. But you know what? It's okay, It's okay. Just just look, just be patient. Help is on the way.
Help is on the hold on.
Yep.
Help is on the way. No, it's not. Look, let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about this thing. So the COVID relief bill, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package that the Democrats were, hemming and hawing for weeks.
Right.
Really a couple of months, saying that they wanted bipartisan support from the Republicans on to pass. Right. Now, for weeks and weeks, they said that, because no Republicans supported the bill as it existed with the $15 minimum wage increase in it, that they had to take the $15 minimum wage increase out to get Republican support. Right. That's what they said. Tell me if we're wrong, but I remember them saying that. And look, sometimes we're wrong. If we're wrong on that, let us know. But that's what
we're not wrong on this, though.
Them saying, we're not wrong on this.
No, we're not wrong.
They said they could not keep the $15 an hour minimum wage proposal in there because the GOP didn't support it, and because the Senate parliamentarian told them that they couldn't pass the bill with it in there. Exactly. Remember when we said, and maybe you didn't see our stream on Luke Mon Nation last week, where we talked about that Senate parliamentarian rule that was absolutely bullshit from the Democrats. The excuse they used. Why was it bullshit? Number one, the Senate parliamentarian can offer recommendations. The Senate parliamentarian can't make them do anything. Right. That's not how it works. How do we know that's true? Because during the Trump administration, that's how the Trump administration passed the Trump tax cuts. They folded those cuts into a larger bill, and the Senate parliamentarian said, whoa, you can't put that tax cut provision in this bill. And the GOP said, whoa, fuck you. We're going to fire you, Senate parliamentarian, and we're going to pass these tax cuts for rich people during the budget reconciliation process. That's what they did. The GOP fired the parliamentarian when the parliamentarian said, you can't do that. The GOP said, oh yeah, hold my beer. And go get another job and pass this stuff. In budget reconciliation, fast forward to the Biden administration, the bipartisan play by the rules Biden administration. Oh, the Senate parliamentarian said, we can't do that. And instead of the vice president, who has authority over the parliamentarian? We need to remind people that Kamala Harris, the one that they say, oh wow, when Biden won, and they were saying, you know what, we got the game now, because see, even if the Republicans try to block us, we got our secret weapon, Kamala. And she's gonna put us over the top, man. So this is what they sold to us. She could have, without actually firing the parliamentarian, she could have just said, no, we're not abiding by that rule. It's just a recommendation. We are keeping the $15 minimum wage raise in the COVID relief package, and we passing this. But that's not what they did. They took that out. The $15 minimum wage hike over 4 years now, remember, even if it was in there, it wouldn't have, the $15 wouldn't have been the minimum wage next year. It would have been the minimum wage in 4 years. It would have been raised incrementally. Which mean that when those 4 years would have came up and you got the $15 an hour, it still wouldn't have been enough because of the increasing cost of living in this country. And can we just say it's not enough now? It's not enough even now. Even if it were $15 now. And look, that's another very layered discussion that we need to have about the minimum wage and what the real cost of living is and what the actual minimum wage should be. $15 is sure enough better than $7.25, but $15 is still not a livable wage. It's not. So that let's make that clear. But so okay, they took it out. They took it out, because after all,
we can't leave it in there because the Republicans won't allow it.
Oh, the GOP.
The GOP, because we want to be friends. We want to.
Yes,
yeah, we need this bipartisanship.
That bipartisanship.
Right.
They said they took it out because the parliamentarians said they couldn't keep it in there, and the GOP was mad, and it's not going to pass the Senate if it stays in there. So they took that $15 minimum wage out. So how come? How come? And then they said that if we do that, then maybe we could get some Republicans to vote for the rest of the COVID relief. So how come? Explain this to me, Baba. I'm so confused. How come that COVID relief package passed without any GOP support anyway?
Any GOP support. The only thing that the GOP had in their arsenal was delay tactics. That's all they had.
They were never going to vote for it. It doesn't matter what the Democrats put in or put out, did the hokey pokey, turned it all about. It didn't matter.
Right.
The Democrat and I'm not mad at the GOP for that because we know them. Nobody should be mad about anything the GOP does.
This is who they are.
This is who they are.
Yep.
They make no bones about who they are. They're not shy about it. They might as well just come out and say, we hope all y'all poor people die.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're not going to talk about them. Democrats, they sold people this bill of goods about bipartisanship and courting support of Republicans. And we need their votes. And we can't raise the minimum wage. We can't put that in this package because the GOP won't support it. Then they passed this COVID relief bill without any GOP support anyway. And damn it, if y'all are not asking yourselves, why couldn't you get $15 an hour minimum wage if the GOP were not going to support this bill in the first place? Why Democrats wouldn't fight for that for you? If y'all aren't asking yourselves for that, I know I'm about to sound really, really mean and hateful on a Sunday, but you deserve the politicians you get if you are not asking who the hell these people are and why they didn't fight for you to have half of a livable wage.
But we should have known the con game was coming, because the reason why I say that is when Biden first proposed this COVID, this $1.9 trillion COVID bill, Republicans started coming out saying, "Oh wow, it's too expensive. We need to whittle it down. This is going to add to the overall national debt deficit. Is going to and Biden." Because, he's been around in the Senate for like 1,000 years. He said that, either they do it. Because remember when he got real gangster and Biden said, look, you only got a certain amount of time to get on board or we're just going to pass this damn thing. So when he said that let it know we're going to pass it without your support. Right. So he done already gave up he already exposed that we don't really need you. So what was with all of this drama? What was with all of these theatrics that was going on and that they took us through the last couple of weeks when Biden said at the beginning, we don't really need you, but because we trying to be civil, we trying to go high, because remember Michelle Obama?
When they go low, we go high.
But so the Democrats was trying to go high, and so we already been told that they didn't need the Republican support. So the question is, why the theatrics? Why go through all of these motions when you knew damn well you could have been done this with the $15 minimum hour thing?
That's the key right there.
Right.
I mean, because it's like, okay, we're not sitting here arguing that the COVID relief bill shouldn't have been passed.
Right.
That's not the argument at all. Our argument has always been that the Democrats inserted that $15 an hour minimum wage proposal bill into the COVID relief package because they knew that it was not going to be accepted. They knew this process of the Senate parliamentarian rejecting it, saying it was outside of the rules. They knew this was going to happen. How in the world does somebody, like you said, Joseph Biden, mummified Joseph Biden, who's been in the Senate for 1,800 years.
Exactly.
How does he not know? He knew it. There is an interview, and I just remembered this. I can't remember which news agency did the interview with him, but they asked him, do you think the minimum wage hike is going to pass in the COVID relief bill. And he admitted then, this was 2 months ago, he admitted then, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to pass.
Already, no, it's not going to pass. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but it's not going to pass. We would like to do it, but it's not going to pass. We would love to do it.
So what was the point? It was all political theater to make people feel good about voting for Biden and Harris to get rid of Trump, knowing damn well that they really weren't going to get a whole lot past whatever it is that's in this COVID relief bill. Now, to be clear, there are some things that are in this COVID relief bill that are absolutely necessary.
Yeah, of course.
The $1,400 checks that should have been $2,000. Because that man is a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. What did he say about Georgia? What did he say about, look, we've got to vote for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. If you send them to the Senate, then those $2,000 checks will go right out the door. Them checks are now $1,400. And not only are they $1,400, but they're not going out the door to everybody that they were going to go out the door to before.
Because see, this is another thing too. How in the world can you let the powerless minority, because see, this whole targeted stimulus package, that was the Republicans saying that. That was Manchin, who might as well just change his D to R. But this is the thing that they suggested. And so even with that suggestion, they wouldn't vote for the bill.
Exactly.
So this shows you the con game. So here it is. Biden came up there being all gangster in the beginning. Like, I'm going to push this through. In fact, I should raise it to $2 trillion. But no, I'm going to leave it at 1.9 trillion, right? And now we see the bluster and the bluff that the Democratic Party is really about. You know, the thing that really bothers me, Jackie, is that this is what we get. And when I say we, those who supported the Democratic Party, this is how you're rewarded. You're rewarded with a party that that gives you all of the bells and whistles, you know, because all of this theatrics was, and I agree with you, all of these theatrics was to pretend to their base, oh, we were fighting for you, and we really had the intentions of doing this, but but for the sake of having some kind of peace within the ranks of the Republicans and the Democrats, we decide. Now they promised us this. This is what they promised us. Bernie Sanders and all the other ones who knew they screwed us. But this is what they came back with. Don't worry, we're gonna get back to it.
Right.
But we're gonna now. This is the con game for real. The $15 an hour minimum wage, we're just gonna focus on that. See, we're gonna pass this bill because folks are suffering out there. We're in March, and the expiration dates for a lot of these, like the eviction thing,
right? The eviction moratorium,
right. All of these,
hasn't been adhered to
because
people are still being taken to court.
Right.
People are still gonna owe all that back rent.
Right.
You know,
and the unemployment, is so they knew, and this is what they do. They always get down to the line. Right, when they know that the American people is at that line, then they say, okay, well, we're gonna pass this. So but the thing where the con game is at is that they promised the American people, their supporters, that, oh no, we haven't forgotten about the $15 an hour minimum wage. We just want to pass this off so we can keep people in their homes, we can keep people getting that unemployment, and they can keep getting the help that they need. And then we're gonna go back to the lab. Right? Because we left at the end of the lab. So we're going to go back to the lab, and then we're going to really concentrate on this $15 an hour minimum wage. So that's where you're going to see the real con job. But what really bothers me with this whole theatrics with the Democratic Party is that even when Obama was in power, it was the same way. It was the same neoliberal agenda, but they put on the theatrics like, oh, well, we're really going to fight for real progressive values, where in turn they were never really about it.
No, and they're not, making any. They're not even making any attempts to pretend like they're fighting for any so-called progressive values.
Right.
Because once again, the Democrats left the progressive savior Bernie Sanders out there by himself, fighting on the Senate floor for this $15 an hour minimum wage to be put back into this COVID relief bill.
Right.
And of course, the Democrats in the Senate were like, "No, fuck you, Bernie." But let's talk about the Democrats, though. Let's talk about Joe Manchin, because you raised that man's name, and let's explain who the Democratic Party really,
who they really listen to,
who they really capitulated to.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't really the Republicans that they capitulated to on this bill. Yeah, the Republicans were like, yeah, screw all y'all. We not voting for this. We hate people. We hope they die, especially if they're poor.
Right.
Yeah, screw you. Joe Manchin. This is one Democrat, the Senate, the Democratic senator from West Virginia.
From West Virginia, right.
He was against the $15 minimum wage, but so was Kristen Sinema. Let's be clear.
Yeah, he wasn't by himself.
Kristen Sinema, who I think was once a member of the Green Party.
That I don't know.
Somebody
out there, if somebody out there know that, let us know. If
I'm incorrect on that, Sharice. I love our commenters. Sharice said that that I'm waiting for it to come up. There it is. Sharice said, "Fuck you, Bernie," and them mittens too. Mittens that everybody will just lost their minds over at the inauguration. But these were Democrats who voted against the $15 an hour minimum wage. And the Democratic Party capitulated to those people.
Right.
Not the Republicans, because they weren't going to support this anyway. The Democratic Party capitulated to the pro-business, pro-capitalist, corporate class folks that support their party. And those people voted against working class and poor people. If the Democratic Party were serious about working on behalf of their base, meaning, let me just stop calling it the Democratic Party, because Joe Biden is the head of the Democratic Party. Just like Donald Trump was the head of the Republican Party, and he still is, whether people believe it or not, he is, and he will always be from now on. Excuse me. Thank you, Sharice. She was Green Party. Kristen Sinema was Green Party before 2004, when she took the money from the Democrats, I guess. So if Joe Biden were serious about doing anything for the people who voted for him to become president, he would have gotten Manchin and Sinema in a room and told them, look, you will vote for this COVID relief package with the $15 minimum wage bill in it and the $400 a week unemployment provision in it, because Manchin also didn't want the unemployment payment to be raised from $300 to $400. Think about this. That bastard is so cheap and hateful that he didn't want to give people an extra $100 a week and $15 an hour minimum wage 4 years from now.
Well, let's talk about the state that Manchin represents.
Let us talk about the state.
Now Manchin is coming off in Congress like West Virginia is Beverly Hills. Like they don't need no increase in their minimum wage. And I mean, they don't need this and they don't need that. Like you got a whole state that, they just balling, you know what I mean? And it would be a sin and crime to the American taxpayers to sit up there and take, taxpayer money for all of these people in West Virginia who are obviously doing so well. Well, let's check this out. In West Virginia, the poverty rate in West Virginia is 16%.
What?
16% of the people in West Virginia live below the poverty line. They also have a 22% unemployment rate.
Good God.
I mean, not 22%. I'm sorry. They have a 6.3% unemployment rate.
Okay.
They have a 22% rise in opioid addiction overdoses and deaths.
What?
from last year, from
22% rise from last year.
22% rise from last year
in
opioid
overdose deaths.
Right, deaths, exactly. So I mean, so this is and not to mention the minimum wage in West Virginia is $8.75 in a state where there's no more coal mining, which was their claim to fame.
That's right.
And a lot of the mining industry, which has went under, that even Trump himself couldn't resurrect because that was Trump's plan to resurrect the coal mining. Well, coal mining never came back, like a lot of manufacturing never came back. So this 6.3% unemployment rate is really counting what the unemployment rate really is in West Virginia.
Right.
But yet you got this guy Manchin who, man, fuck that. Fuck the unemployed. Fuck the, fuck all of that. You don't deserve to get. You don't deserve to have anything above $8.75 an hour.
$7.
Right, $8.
$7.25.
No, $8.
What's that?
That's West Virginia's minimum wage.
That's West Virginia's minimum wage.
Their minimum wage.
I guess he thought they were being generous by giving them $1.50.
But that's what I'm saying. So you got a state now with where everybody's dying from drugs. You got a state where their industry have left. The coal mine industry never came back. Poverty is increasing in that state like it's increasing everywhere else. And also you have a state where the poverty rate is continuing to go up. So in all of this, you got a representative like Manchin who is saying like, well, you know what? In spite of all of the suffering that's going on in my state, in spite of all the people who have needs in my state, I am not going to support this bill, which would the provisions in this bill, which would help the constituents in my state.
Right.
So I mean, who the fuck is he representing?
He's representing the what's left of the coal industry. He's representing what's left of the manufacturing industry. And I think this is really important because we watched a documentary a few weeks ago about the environmental crisis in West Virginia that was created by these chemical companies.
We did.
Dumping chemical waste into the waterways in West Virginia. And all of these chemical and manufacturing companies support Manchin. They changed a bill that would have provided for oversight and inspection of like chemical holding tanks at all of these chemical companies and such, so that they could be reported and repaired if they looked like they were rusted through and they were leaking and that kind of stuff. Well, the manufacturing and the people did this, and this is. We have to go back and find the name of this documentary for y'all.
I think it's still up.
It's still up. Yeah. I think it's on Netflix. It's either on Netflix or Amazon Prime, unfortunately. But we have to go back and find the name of this documentary for you because it's very important, because the people who were organizing against the environmental exploitation and destruction were the poor, white, working class folks in West Virginia.
Right.
That are Manchin's constituents, and they mobilized and they got this, and some black folks too. They mobilized and they got this bill passed, which would have held the chemical companies accountable. But then what happened in the next election cycle? The manufacturing companies and their lobbies got together and they rewrote the bill.
Yep.
And Manchin allowed them to do it. So that's
so much for democracy.
So much for democracy. Yep. So that's the kind of person Joe Manchin is to the people in West Virginia. So it's not a surprise that he doesn't care about poor, working class, and oppressed folks in the rest of the country. Right. He don't care about those folks in his own state. So understanding this about Joe Manchin, I am even angrier, and people should be even angrier at the so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Seriously, for not cornering that dude and Kristen Sinema somewhere, in the parking lot and jacking these people up. And like, look, what you do in your state is your business, but you're not going to fuck over the rest of the American people like this. And I understand that the Progressive Caucus, people will say the Progressive Caucus doesn't have any power. But if you don't have the power to leverage your caucus against the wayward members of your party when they are operating in opposition to the needs of the people, not the desires, but the needs of the people for their very survival, then why the hell are you there?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jackie, because let's talk about who else is complicit in this.
Who else we got to drag?
The Squad.
Okay.
Now, I know the Squad has a very big following out there, but they're also part of this con game because there is no reason why that Manchin and what was the other one?
Kristen Sinema.
Yeah, Sinema.
With a little curtsy. Did you see that?
No, I don't pay attention to that. So you got Manchin and Sinema and some of the other ones that went against this. You know, the Squad came down there, man, like they was the Justice League. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean they came down there, man. I mean they got all the fanfare, this and that and the other. But they but they've been quiet. Let's be honest. They've been quiet, and the only reason why they've been quiet is because of the godmother Nancy Pelosi. The godmother Nancy Pelosi. That's why they've been quiet. You know, so you don't see AOC, who's really vocal everywhere else.
She on Twitter 24/7.
Exactly. She's vocal when it comes to everything else, but she was like really suspiciously silent on this. She was all the rest of the Squad suspiciously silent. You know, so it seemed like to me that the godmother Nancy Pelosi gave the order, you know, to say that no, they should not be touched. You know, it's like the mafia. And, you know, I love mafia movies.
He does.
Yeah, right. But, you know, but in a lot of mafia movies, you know, you got the crew like in The Godfather, right? And when you had, when Michael moved out to Lake Tahoe, and those of you who are Godfather fans, you know what I'm talking. One of his soldiers, Captain Regimes, wanted to go after the Rosado brothers. But Michael had business with them. So Michael said, I do not want them touched. Even though the Capra regime and all the soldiers and the Corleone family was like, we got to get them. It's a street thing. But Michael said, no, I got business with the Rosado brothers. They shall not be touched. Nancy Pelosi told the Squad, Manchin should not be touched.
That's exactly what happened.
Yep.
That's precise. And we believe that's what, because this makes no sense. This you see the way the GOP has no problem dragging other members of the GOP when they do something that they don't like. I don't understand. Well, I do understand this whole ridiculous unity bullshit that they have in the Democratic Party.
Right.
Joseph Biden should have made a call, walked down the block, you know, went through took the train, did the tunnel, and showed up at Manchin's office, summoned him to the White House, him and Kristen Sinema, and told them, either the two of you vote for this COVID relief package with this $15 an hour minimum wage in it, as it is right now, or you will not get a dime from the Democratic Party for your upcoming reelection bid.
Now, let me ask you something, Jackie. Do you think that Trump would allow something like that to have happened in the Republican Party?
Hell no.
If this was reversed, if we're talking about first term Trump, first term Trump, you think that he would allow any Republican? You seen what he did with the Republicans that stood against him.
He got up on, what did he do? Where did he, when he had that, when he spoke at CPAC, that man read the entire list of GOP members who voted for his impeachment.
But this is but that's my point. This is the attitude of post-presidency Trump.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, Trump there would never have been, or Trump would have never tolerated any kind of insurrection.
I see, but yeah, right.
I mean, they would have fell in line, and if they didn't fall in line, Trump would have put them out there.
That's true.
And he would have turned the rabid base that he got on them in their own district, and been like, you know what? He's not supporting me. So I can't do this because he's not supporting me. And he would have put that out there publicly, and those MAGAs, those maggots that's down there in their home district, they would have been like, "What you mean you're not supporting Trump? What do you mean you're not supporting our president?"
Right.
You know, so there is and this is the weakness, in my view, of the Democratic Party. It's not that they don't know how to play politics; it's that they refuse to play politics.
They refuse to play politics for the people.
For the people, right?
That's the issue. And I know people are wondering, well, look, why are, supposed Pan-Africanist Black revolutionaries talking about electoral politics? Because a lot of our people are still very much invested in electoral politics. And honestly, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about this, but this is just my personal thing. I feel like we cannot educate our folks away from relying on electoral politics to solve all of our problems until we expose the problems with the people they vote for right now, not the system. Because the system, I think everybody understands that the system is fucked up. I do believe that most of our folks do understand that the system is just garbage. But when you have people still hoping that the Democrats are better than the Republicans, seeing right now in real time that the Democrats, that they hanged, I think that's the correct tense of that word, I'm not sure, that they hanged their hopes on.
Go home.
I don't know. Who cares? But y'all know what I mean.
Yeah.
That they hanged their hopes on, delivering them from, the economic crisis that we are deeper in now because of coronavirus, but that we were already in. Clearly the domestic political crisis, and certainly the international political crisis that we face. I feel like we do have to raise these issues, talk about them, point out the contradictions, and make it clear to people what they got for the vote that they put so much stock in. See what I mean?
Well, and let's not forget, Jackie, that that these politics, whether we like them or not, affects us. So we can't be so naive to think that we so black and we so Pan-Africanist that what the decisions that they're making down there on Pennsylvania Avenue is not affecting us. Right. Because it is. You could be as black as you want. You could be as nationalistic as you want. You could be as Pan-Africanist as you want. But as long as you live here, those decisions affect you. So it's not the fact that we are dependent on, or that we even rely upon the politics that's taking place within the government. But what we are saying is that we have a responsibility, not only as individuals, but even as those of us who sit in these seats. Those of us who had sit in these seats, we have the responsibility of at least being informed.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Exactly. Being informed. You don't have to endorse it.
Right.
But being informed is something else.
And that's where the revolutionary part of who we are takes over. It should take over. Because what do you do with that information? Do you go vote for another person in the same political party who's doing the same things, just maybe not as bad as this particular guy? No, what you do is you cultivate leaders from among your community that have the revolutionary radical ideas and background to push forward, that's based on that information of what not to do.
Exactly.
That's what you do. This is why we support political parties like the Ujima People's Progress Party in Maryland.
Yep.
This is what that information is. This is why we share this information about what the current political parties do, so that we're very clear on who we should not be throwing our political support behind in regard to electoral politics, because electoral politics is still a tool in our continued struggle for liberation. It's not, electoral politics is not going to get us free, but politics is a tool in this struggle, just like everything else we are involved in. And we've got to learn how to use these tools interchangeably, and when to fall back on some of them and when to push some other things to the forefront. So,
and we have to remember that, you know, war is about strategy and deception. So this is what, so when we're, I mean, and we are at war with white supremacy here and abroad. So we have to remember that war is about strategy, and it's about deception, and it's about being pragmatist too. You can't throw out, when you're in war against your enemy, you can't afford to throw out anything which will help you win. You know, you can't. So so anyway, so this is the thing that another thing that went with this $1 trillion thing is the ridiculous opposition that came from people like Ted Cruz. I mean, this guy, I mean, he just doesn't know when to quit, this guy. So he gets out there on the floor and he says that, you know, his opposition is that, you know, these checks are going to go out to millions of so-called illegal immigrants, where another senator had to call him out on the floor and say, that's just not true.
I mean, it's like for the GOP, to signal to their base that they should hate something,
right?
All they have to say is illegal immigrants, gays, or abortion, and they don't really have to say anything else in context. They just get on the floor of the Senate and the House, and they say the illegal immigrants are gonna, and then this is gonna cause more abortions.
Right.
The gays are gonna do this, and then their base just loses their damn mind.
Now like, getting back, cause I just had to throw that out there because Ted is crazy.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the con game. Because the reason why, and I want to stay on point with this, because Biden's thing to the black community, I mean, his thing to the black, when he was up there crying and, you know, and he had his head bowed low, and then, you know, and he told Black America, his supporters, he said, you had my back, and Black America, gosh darn it, I'm going to have your back too. You know, you put me over the top, and golly gee, gosh darn it, I'm going to do it back to you, right?
I don't want you to do it back to me. Biden.
Yeah, right. So so this is what he said, because he knew that black people, was tired of being the bridesmaid and never the bride. He heard these rumblings when he had his online, you know, summit with all of the so-called civil rights leaders and black leaders and all that stuff,
and straight disrespected those
right
people.
Exactly. So I mean, so it's not like, you know, he doesn't know that we're getting tired of being, you know, strung along and drug along. But he did say that, you know, he had our back. Now, I don't know about you, but after what just went down with this whole deception of the $1 trillion COVID bills, now stay with me, the COVID bill, I can't see how in the world that these promises that Biden said, because I want to know, first of all, how you gonna have my back when you don't have the back of the American people when it came to this.
Nope.
The biggest thing that you could have had our back and would have been with the passage of that minimum wage increase, and what would have been having our back is that this was the time, because I can't help but be reminded of Barack Obama's first term. How Barack Obama spent whatever political capital he had, where he could have pushed the biggest progressive agenda through Congress that ever came before, because he was even in a better position than Biden is right now.
Yep.
So then here Biden comes along, and then Biden was in a position to pass the largest progressive agenda through. You got our back, Biden? This is the time to show us. You had our back. This was the time to show us. But once again, they get up the bat, and guess what? They strike out. Now, a lot of people say, well, this $1 trillion, I don't consider that a strikeout. Well, I do. Because when you have the kind of advantage, let the Republicans, and we know what the Republicans did when they had advantages like this in the White House and in the Senate and partly in the House. Man, they went roughshod. They were taking ATV. Yeah, I mean, they riding all around like, you know, tax cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they were doing it, throwing dirt in people's faces and stuff like that. and was unapologetic about it.
Absolutely unapologetic about it. But here you have, and here's the crazy thing about it, right? Here's the weird thing about it. Your average Republican voter who is not a business owner, who is not rich, who is not even middle class, just as broke as you and me, but they have this allegiance to white supremacy and this hatred of immigration and this so-called, these so-called morality politics based in, these bullshit narratives about gay people,
right,
and abortion. That just, that's a whole nother show that we got to have about that mess right there. But they believed they gained something from the Trump presidency and any Republican presidency because they believe that they are fighting a culture war, right? Even if they didn't get any more money, if their minimum wage isn't raised, if they don't get any more economic benefits, if their economic and health situation doesn't change, if they don't get Medicare for all, which their sick asses can use too.
Yeah, even more so.
They feel like they are literally with the Republican president and Congress and House and conservative legislation. They feel like they are gaining their country back.
Right.
Their culture is being preserved. Their way of life is being preserved.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah, I think we fought a civil war behind those same ideas.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, but you can't tell them that.
Right.
But my point is, what do the Democrats say they are fighting for? And the Republicans are clear that when they talk to their working class and poor base, that's what they say. They tell them, yeah, we're not going to give you any more money because that's against our principles and values. But for those of you who ain't got nothing, hey, we're fighting for the American way of life. And that means something tangible to them. Yes, it's bullshit, white supremacist ideology, but it means something to them. And Republicans are clear on, we'll give the broke folks who vote for us that much. What do the Democrats tell working class and poor people that they will ever do for working class and poor people?
That's
Democrats don't ever talk about poverty.
They don't talk about poverty.
They don't talk about working class and poor people.
No.
They stay talking about appealing to the middle class. And when Democrats talk about appealing to the middle class, they're talking about white people.
Yeah, it's not us.
It's not ever us. They're talking about appealing to moderate Republicans who are white, and they're not even talking about working class and poor white people.
No.
So when you look at this in from the larger context, whether you're interested in politics or not, then you start to understand that what the Republicans did under Trump and every Republican presidency in making rich people richer, the Democrats have done the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Only the Democrats couch it in this language of, we're better than the Republicans. Right. But that's all it is. It's language.
Right. And getting back to this thing that you were just saying about how they never address poverty. This is one of the reasons why, we're coming at it like this, is because, a president that would go to Wall Street and tell Wall Street that nothing will change. A president that would do that does not really want to pass a minimum wage increase bill of $15 an hour, because Wall Street wouldn't go for that. So it would really not surprise me that you go to Wall Street and you say, look, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to fundamentally change, but I do got to play the role. I got to pretend that that we're doing something. And so it's this balance game of trying to keep the business sector happy, at the same time pretending to the rank and files, those who are the Democratic vote supporters, that somehow we're in this uphill battle against these Republicans. Now, the Republicans have already shown how weak they were, because all they had were delay tactics.
Right.
And it also shows you how you can't even trust even the so-called moderate Republicans, because which was Romney? Romney was, he was leading the charge against Trump and how Trump had, and he was one of the old school Republicans that wanted wanted politics to go back to being civil and this and that and the other. But in the end, he fell in line with everybody else. So we are bringing this to say that you can't trust none of them. And the reason why I say that is I go on a lot of forums, where black people are, saying that, well, if the Democrats only did this, if the Democrats only, people stop. It's not that they don't know what to do.
Thank you.
And I wish my people would understand that. It's not that, the Republicans, why do the Republicans always get over on them? Because they want them to get over on them. It's the same game. It's the same. They both for the same thing. Yeah. It's good cop, bad cop.
Oh, my God.
That's all it is. It's good cop, bad cop. They play this game with us every 4 years. The good cop, bad cop. But in the end, we get fucked either way.
I mean, and let me tell you something. We're not. Again, there are some provisions in this COVID relief bill that are good. It's not all bad. The way they went about this lets us know, makes it very clear they could have given us way more, plus $15 an hour minimum wage, way sooner than 4 years from now, from the beginning. But all of this other stuff was political theater. And what did we get in the meantime? Some pared down thing that is really not going to address the material needs of the people in any significant way over a long-term period of time. Yeah, everybody should get that $2,000 check every month.
Right.
Every month, not just this 114, every month. That should have been going on for a long time. But what we got was a compromise that the Democrats made with themselves against the people. That's what we've got. That's what we've gotten. And this is not only going to be played out with this COVID relief bill, but it's also going to be played out with this so-called George Floyd Policing Reform Act.
That's right.
Now, there is an article in the Guardian newspaper about this George Floyd Act that it was passed in the House. It might pass the way this bill passed. It might pass in the Senate with the tie-breaking vote from Kamala Harris. I don't know. We do know that no Republican is going to support this thing either.
No.
But the thing to remember about this George Floyd Policing Act is reflected in a Guardian article about it that is called "The George Floyd Act Wouldn't Have Saved George Floyd's Life Either." That is everything you need to know about this thing. This piece of legislation that even some so-called progressives are championing as this great advancement for police reform just is not. Because number one, the George Floyd Policing Reform Act, or whatever it's really called, bans chokeholds, but chokeholds are already banned in a lot of jurisdictions. And what the police do is they'll say, oh, the state legislature just banned chokeholds because the Negroes are mad that we killed another one of them. So we'll change the manuals and we'll change out the word chokehold and we'll just call it something else.
Right. Restraining hold.
It's a restraint. They change the name and they do the same thing so that they can say the next time they kill another unarmed person, oh, well, that wasn't a chokehold. We banned chokeholds when the state legislature banned chokeholds.
Right.
We had this person in, a violent restraint hold. That wasn't a chokehold.
And especially if it's a fat one, the first thing they'll say is,
well, he had heart condition.
Right.
So that's number one. And number one, George Floyd was not murdered by a chokehold. Okay? He was murdered because the pig had a knee on that man's neck.
Well, they said that Eric Gardner didn't die from the chokehold either. He was fat and he had heart disease.
Right.
And that contributed to his death. It wasn't the chokehold.
Right.
You know, so this is how they get around these things.
This is how they get around these things. Number two, the George Floyd Act bans racial profile. How many times are we going to ban racial profiling before we realize that you can't ban a practice that an institution that is baked into an institution? It's just, and aside from the fact that it's not that George Floyd himself was racially profiled, he was allegedly, and I'm still not really clear on whether this is true or not, the cops were called because he allegedly passed a fake $20 bill at a store. So we're talking about criminalizing a petty civil offense.
Right, but that's not why George Floyd got killed. George Floyd died is because he was a big black man. And as black men go, there's still this historic trope that's always been around of Mike. Look, when you talk about Mike Brown, when you talk about black men, period, it's this thing that we're somehow more fearsome, more we're stronger, we're more dangerous. I can't forget when Mike Brown was murdered, how that cop said, "Oh, he was charging me." I mean, describing him in these animalistic terms.
Right. He even said that he was, a big monster.
Right, big monster. So here you got a guy like George Floyd, who's well above 6'3" or something like that. Big guy, and so there's still this mindset that black men are, you have to use extra force to subdue them because they're somehow superhuman.
Right. And not just big black men. Look at Elijah McClain.
Right.
Elijah McClain was 120 pounds?
Right. But
my point, look at what they did, but I understand.
Yeah, my point being is the fact that George Floyd did not get killed for the $20 bill.
Right.
He got killed because the way these white cops perceive black men and how they always perceive black men.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. So you can't ban that.
No,
you can't ban that kind of attitude. Then the other part of this George Floyd policing act that the Democrats are pushing is for to give the police more money. Now,
but more money to do what?
That's the thing. I don't. If
because we still have the issue of the 1033 program.
There's that, and I just. There were people, again, we talk about the progressives in Congress who were wondering what the heck they're supposed to be doing. And they're celebrating this as if it's a good thing. The people in their districts are talking about defunding the police, taking money from the police and giving that money to communities. And we're not saying that is the best answer or the answer to a racist terrorist policing. We're just telling you what people on the streets have been demanding. And here come these people celebrating this piece of legislation that gives the police more money to police themselves.
But this is the thing. How much of this you think is a big middle finger to the defunder?
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's where we were going.
Right.
That's where we so here's what's going to happen with this George Floyd. And I'm so glad you mentioned the 1033 program because we first started to see militarized policing. I should say I first started to really, really see militarized policing in Ferguson, where really, honestly, and that's not true. That is not true. I'm sorry. No, the protest in the 60s.
We saw militarized policing in the black community way back. You and I grew up during the crack era.
Yeah, that's true. What am I saying?
So we've always seen militarized policing.
I had too much coffee. I was sitting here as I was saying it. I was remembering like the protests in the 60s. I was born in 67, so I remember watching news footage of like military tanks rolling down the streets. And like I didn't even know where Camden, New Jersey was in Newark, New Jersey. Seeing military tanks rolling down the streets in Newark, New Jersey, and other places
Los
around.
Angeles,
and militarized policing is like a thing that has always been going on. Let's not forget that the very concept of the SWAT team was created to crush the Black Panther Party for self-defense. That's where the SWAT team came from.
And that was actually the first time that this militarized policing actually became a thing. Because prior to SWAT, police departments, in fact, and this is just a fun fact, when Gates, it was actually Gates that suggested this SWAT. I think it was Gates. But other police were against that.
That I think I remember that.
In the beginning, a lot of police departments were actually against the formation of a SWAT. They felt like that had no place in civilian policing.
And then they were like, but the Negroes, and then the police were like, you know what?
Right.
A good idea.
Exactly.
So what has happened, and I think that when I first saw it as I was growing up, of course I didn't have the political education that I have now, and that is still growing. That's still, that I'm still building on. So it didn't have the kind of resonance with me then that it does now. But I remember seeing the protests in Ferguson and seeing that tank rolling down the street, and with the guy with the machine gun on top, and thinking to myself, and that was the first time I think I remember in my adult life kind of thinking, where does that shit come from? And then learning about the 1033 program, and that equipment comes from the Department of Defense. Now, those are weapons of war.
Now, this is the thing, because I want people out there to understand how bad this 1033 program is. You and I, there is a town, a little small town right next to DC called Capitol Heights, Maryland.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Capitol Heights, Maryland. You can sleepwalk through Capitol Heights, Maryland. I mean,
it's true.
Right. You can sleepwalk through Capitol Heights, Maryland, right? Yet they have the police department have military combat vehicles in their parking lot. Now, for what? I don't know. But I know when I go to work through there sometimes, and I remember when I called you and I told you, I said, do you know that? I said, they got Humvees and military vehicles up here in Capitol Heights Police Department parking lot.
I was like, why? What they doing in Capitol Heights that I don't know about? I mean, Capitol Heights is literally like 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm like, what they doing in Capitol Heights if they need all that kind of stuff? And I'm serious, they really don't.
But found out that with the 1033 program is that the military offers this equipment to them that they don't even have to pay for. The only thing that these police departments have to do is just go get it.
Right.
So all they have to do is, if they have to pay for the transportation of these military equipment to get to where they're at, or they actually go out there and pick them up. But they don't. I mean, this is not costing these municipalities anything to get this type of military equipment, which we know they use against us.
Exactly. And if they do pay for them, guess where that money comes from? Our taxes. Just a note, because a couple of our comrades have alerted us to some unpleasant people in the comments, and we're going to have to start giving these disclaimers when we start our segments. This is Black Power Media, folks. This is our platform. We consider this an extension of our living room, of our personal space. We consider our supporters, friends, comrades, and some of you we've been working with for so long, your family. If we invite you into our home to have a conversation, you're going to be civil. You're not going to be mean and nasty to other people. You can disagree, but you're not going to throw out racist, sexist, homophobic, classist garbage in our chat. If you do, we will put you in a timeout for 5 minutes. When the timeout expires, if you come back with more bullshit, we're blocking you. Because here's what we do know about our spaces, the spaces of Black people. We are so set upon and brutalized in the outside world every day. We go through so much shit in our regular life. When we have these conversations, we're not putting up with your garbage in here. So we don't mind a good disagreement. We're cool with principled struggle. We're fine with that. And if you have questions, if we catch them, we'll be glad to answer the questions. You can, inbox us. We'll be glad to answer your questions. But we're not dealing with trolls. We're not going to allow that.
And don't treat us in the way that you wouldn't treat white folks.
Oh, come on.
Because don't treat us. Don't feel like you can abuse us when you don't go and do that on white platforms and white forums. You yes sir and yes ma'am on their platform.
Oh my God.
But don't come here thinking that you could disrespect our platform and you don't dare do it to nobody else. So, because that shows to me that you're just a straight up chump. Oh, I could disrespect Black people, but I can't disrespect, but I would never disrespect David Duke's site, or I'll never disrespect somebody else who don't even have your best interests at heart.
Right.
And that's only if you're black, because, you know, we don't know what you look like.
Exactly.
So you could be anything. But anyway, back to the matter at hand.
And I think that some people are saying that, you know, some of their comments were held. I think that's just an automatic thing with some of the settings on the channel. That's not personal. If you ain't slinging some crazy shit, with the Lukmans aren't blocking you.
Right.
But if you are, trust me, we'll get to you. Okay. Anyway, back to the conversation.
Back to the lesson at hand.
George Floyd, the George Floyd, whatever it's called, I don't know.
Right.
Just the fact that this piece of legislation doesn't actually address the concerns that people in the streets who have been fighting against racist police terrorism across the country for decades have actually been bringing up is a serious problem. And the Democratic Party, the same Democratic Party that somehow magically just managed to pass the COVID relief bill with no Republican support, which they said they couldn't do, and that they may do the same thing with this George Floyd Police Reform Act. Be prepared for that not to change a doggone thing in regard to racist police terrorism.
Yep.
Somebody, Luke calls it the George Floyd Theatrics Act. I can't disagree with that. I really can't disagree with that, especially when we talk about giving the cops more money.
Right.
When this is the other thing about it that they tried to make a big deal about, that there is a reform of qualified immunity. You can't reform.
They already had that. They already got that.
There's no reform in qualified immunity. You need to get rid of qualified immunity. No cop should have qualified immunity to kill people without, you know, solid, reasonable justification that their life or the life of honestly, cops shouldn't be killing people. Because, I mean, if other countries can manage to take suspects of crimes in custody without killing them over 90% of the time, and we see police in this country being able to do that with suspects who have literally, can we never forget that Dylan Roof slaughtered 8 people praying in a church?
Yep.
And the cops managed to take that boy into custody, that murdering bastard into custody, and took him to Burger King. So you mean to tell me that the police just can't?
Right.
They just don't know how to take violent, murderous people into custody without killing? Bullshit. The only reason they have qualified immunity is so that they can get in front of a grand jury and use that to exonerate themselves when they kill one of us. It needs to be done away with, because if you or I went out, and we're not even guaranteed to have the protections of the castle doctrine in defending ourselves if we kill somebody breaking into our home.
Yeah, black folks don't get that. I mean, look, black folks don't get the castle doctrine. You know, I mean, even the stand your ground. We've seen that in stand your ground states, that when the young lady, I think she's out now, but the young lady who used the stand your ground against an abusive relationship, who was doing all these years in prison, and you know, they had the support to try to get her out. So, you know, it's to the point where it's used to further white supremacy. The castle doctrine and all of these other gun laws is used. But anyway, I want to get back to the George Floyd bill.
Yeah.
Where I think that one of the things that I think is probably the most beneficial in the George Floyd bill is the National Registry.
Oh.
Right. Okay. The National Registry. So you could look up a bad cop. You could look up a cop and see what their record is. It also establishes a framework to, well, you said that about the racial profiling, but it also establishes new requirements for law enforcement officers and agencies, including to report data on use of force incidents, to obtain training on implicit bias and racial profiling, and to wear body cameras. Now, this is the reason why I agree with Luke about the theatrics, because all the municipalities who have been under fire, including DC, who have been under fire in the last few years, already have those provisions.
Right.
So you already have the body cams. You already have the reporting the statistics. You already have all of those things. So, I mean, so to rehash this, okay. So you know what the people saying? Well, yeah, but this makes it federal. So that means that even those little hick towns and all of these municipalities that don't have that, then the federal government is saying, well, you have to have it, so that makes everything uniform. But at the same time, it is still theatrics, because how is that going to change the attitude, which it won't, of the average beat cop that's out there who is racially profiled? How is that going to stop the jump out squads that we deal with here in DC, or that they deal with in other municipalities? So yeah, I agree that it's nothing but theatrics.
I mean, yeah, it's and the implicit bias training. Why are these people still pushing training for? Anyway, it's just the whole George Floyd, the body cameras. We've seen that they will turn the body cameras off. Mm-hmm. They'll hide the footage for the body cameras. They'll cover that up in legal issues. We have that problem right here in DC.
Yeah, they'll go as far as saying, well, why is it that the body camera footage isn't released yet? Well, we can't show it. I mean, Chicago was having that problem, mm-hmm. where it was like, well, hold up, they killed this guy 2 months ago,
right?
And we still can't see the body camera footage. So what's
right.
So I thought
right.
that the body cameras was for the sake of transparency,
right?
So
right.
again, the only way, and this is the Luqman's position, is that reforming these racist institutions, we're trying to reform these institutions that was built on the foundations of inequality and white supremacy. They have, you can't reform them. There's no reforming these institutions. These institutions have to be taken down, mm-hmm. and then they have to be rebuilt again. Now, how we do that, I don't know. But what I do know is that the current system has not worked for us, mm-hmm. and isn't working for us. So why are we still trying to reform this stuff? Right. Why? That's like telling a serial killer, like, look, go through some sensitivity training.
And there is a question in the comment, because in the chat, because I did say, if you have a question, ask. When you defund the police, who are you going to call when something happens? A social worker.
No, but that's a very common question.
That's a common question. And you know what? There are answers to that question. If you look up the Black Panther Party's mm-hmm. community control over the police, if you look up, I always get the name of the organization wrong. Mm-hmm. National Alliance Against Racist and
National Alliance Against Racists and what? What's
racist and police repression?
There you go.
That's what it is. Community control over the police. Pan-African Community Action. Community control over the police.
Right.
We Black people have had an answer to this question about the alternatives to the police ever since we've been struggling in this country. But white people don't want to listen. White people don't ever want to listen, and they act as if we don't know what we're talking about.
Let's check this out. Why is it that we need policing?
Right.
I mean, well, of course, we let things get out of hand a lot of times, but I mean, we got communities within DC, the Gold Coast and stuff. They don't need policing. We got communities in DC and in the surrounding area where we live at, where police are hardly ever needed out there. So why is that?
Right.
So why is that? Right. So it's not that you must have police. I think that community policing is not, a lot of times you talk about community policing, mm-hmm. and it's always this assumption that, you're just going to immediately dismantle police departments, and then you're going to just get a bunch of brothers together and then talk about police the community. That's not the case. Policing the community starts with policing yourself. Mm-hmm. And policing the community also starts about policing. And maybe the term policing is the wrong term, but it starts about basically taking control of your own neighborhoods, taking control of your own communities. The reason why the police are let in is because we have gotten away from community.
And that is by design. And in the chats again, we recognize the question was disingenuous. It was incredibly disingenuous.
But there are people who have asked that.
But there are people who have asked that, and people can ask these disingenuous questions all they want to, but the answers are absolutely serious. The answer's always been serious.
We came up and, look, we came up in the hood, and during the times when we was coming up, you didn't see a lot of police in our neighborhoods. I mean, now this is before crack, but when we were kids coming up in the neighborhood, I know that growing up in Camden, New Jersey, but you wasn't gonna get no more poorer than that. We did not have this over policing that I recall as a youngster. We didn't have that. We had police that walked the beat, the same cops that walked the beat, the same cops in the neighborhood that knew everybody. There was a focus on community policing at that time. So the over policing of my community that I grew up in actually came when things got desperate economically, where manufacturing started to go, the proliferation of crack cocaine. There was a lot of factors that went into creating crime due to more increased poverty, and people get more desperate economically because the jobs were leaving, and even jobs down that we kids used to could get was leaving. The Reagan administration got rid of a lot of the summer jobs that was employing kids my age at that time, and that was replaced with the drug trade. And so a lot of kids went and seen the economic opportunities in the drug trade, and then with drugs come crime, come murder, come homicide. You never had 300, 400 people get killed in Camden, New Jersey prior to the crack trade. You didn't have that in D.C. So this is when this over-policing started to really be seen in a lot of our communities. Mm-hmm. So we don't really, we have to understand that, a lot of times when we don't have that context, it's made to seem that Black people have to have zookeepers. We don't have to have, we don't, that's what the police have been, like zookeepers. Well, what you going to do if, the police go, them niggas can't control themselves. So what we going to do? But the thing of it is the fact that we don't really need police.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get the troll, y'all. The chat's moving really fast because y'all in here having a good time. but I think I caught the one.
Right. So anyway.
So yeah, I wanted to correct myself. The name of the organization is, and Frank Chapman, please don't be pissed at me, brother. I'm sorry. The National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, the NAARPR. They have worked for community control over the police in Chicago for a very long time. Definitely, you need to check them out. And we're going to try to have Frank on within the next coming.
He's actually a friend
weeks.
of the show.
Yeah, he's a friend of the show. He's a friend of the Luke Bonds. We're going to have him on because he has a new book out that is really, really great about the history of Black socialists. It just fabulous, fabulous stuff. So look, this is the kind of stuff that we do here in Luke Bond Nation. This George Floyd Act, I'm interested to see whether it's going to pass the way the COVID relief did.
Well, let me tell you, in my opinion, they're going to pass something. They're not going to ignore a whole summer of national protests. I mean, the Republicans would, but I don't think that the Democrats, who know that they got to go back to the well again, I don't think that they're going to. They're not going to. I don't think they're going. It's going to pass in some form. Yeah. I mean, it's weak now. So it's weak now. But they're not going to, in my opinion, they're not going to strengthen it, or they're not going to add to this bill that would give it more teeth, as I say.
Right.
So no. But it'll pass. It'll pass.
So I just want to. I am going through the chat, and with the last couple of minutes, we're going to address some of the comments. So M. Ellis. We answered your question. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what you want. We answered your question. So there you go. You don't like the answer? That's a personal problem with you. Like we said, NAARPR, Pan-African Community Action, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, community control over the police. You can Google that term, look it up, and get all the information you want. We will have Frank Chapman of the NAARPR on our show within the next couple of weeks. And we are going to talk about community control over the police. We love Frank. He's a real cool dude. Let's see. What else we got going on in here? Yes, David, Frank does have a new book out on Black socialists. We're going to talk to him about that. Cherie says she wants to do a reading group with his book. That would be great.
That would be great.
That would be great. That would really, because, and this is the thing that I love about what we are doing with the people that we are doing this with in Black Power Media. I've learned so much from our involvement in Black Alliance for Peace, the organization Black Alliance for Peace. I've learned so much from our comrades who publish Hood Communists, a blog and publication that you need to read. I have learned so much from the short period of time that we've been working with Dr. Sharice Burton-Stelly. We have been fans of Dr. Jared Ball for such a long time. Okay, this is funny story time. So we've been listening to Dr. Jared Ball on I Mix What I Like when they were on
PFW.
WPFW, a Pacifica radio outlet on here in Washington, D.C. And when the movie Black Panther came out, WPFW they were hosting a panel discussion on the movie, about the movie. And we are also comic book geeks. What is it? You like the DC comics?
No, heck no.
What is it?
I'm Marvel, man, all the way.
I don't understand how you don't like the X-Men, though.
I just don't like them. But my favorite comic book was always the Hulk.
I don't even understand that. But I'm an X-Men fan. Anyway, so
all about the power, baby. All about the power.
So we, two comic book geeks, we're like, hey, they're making a movie about Black Panther. How badly are they going to fuck this up? But we're like, okay, we're going to go see it. And we see the movie and we're like, all right, the movie was nice for some things. And, the whole CIA agent being the good guy, was messed up.
Yeah.
And, then we find out that WPFW is having this panel discussion. And we weren't going to go. And then we heard that the panel discussion had Dr. Jared Ball and Todd Stephen Burrows on it.
Yes.
We were just and I think it was like $60 per ticket.
I can't remember. But whatever it was, we said it was worth it.
Whatever it was, I was like, how much money we got? Because we gotta go.
Yep.
And the night of the panel discussion, it was snowing.
It was.
The panel discussion was at a movie theater in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Was it Silver Spring?
Yeah, it was in Silver Spring. And it was snowing. And normally, because we're middle-aged and, we're just like, it's snowing. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
But we were like, no, we've got to go. Yeah. So we go and we were both like just sitting there. We were more excited that we were in the same room with Dr. Jared Ball and Todd Stephen Burrows than we were about like the discussion about the movie or anything. So for us to come from that to be working with be working with Dr. Jared Ball to the point where he's just like, stop calling me Dr. Ball.
Right.
I mean, this is a big deal for us to be working with the brothers in Renegade Culture.
Yeah.
With the work that they have done. This is a big deal for us because we are working with people who are serious about the work, who we've admired for a long time, and who we continue to learn from and grow with. So when we are protective of our platform and the people who come up in here, this is why.
Well, I was just going to say, I got one of my most valued Facebook pictures is one I took with Jared Ball.
I know.
Yeah, and it wasn't at that event, but it was somewhere else. But one of the things that Jackie and I always try to stress, is that we need to really respect our scholarship. Like we need to respect, those who are our academians, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, close enough.
All right, well, you got to help me. Our academias, as Black people, we need to respect them. Like we need to support them, and we need to actually understand that their scholarship and stuff is important, and it means a lot to us. I remember Runoko Rashidi said one time, one of my other ones that I respect so much, Runoko Rashidi, that was one of his criticism about Black people, is that we don't respect our scholars. We just don't respect our scholars, and we need to change that attitude. I would not sit up here and think that I could go toe to toe on subjects with Dr. CBS or Jared Ball or, Todd Burrows.
Yeah.
I mean, look, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I like, even now, if I go on BPM and I go to Dr. CBS's her streams and Dr. Ball's streams and other streams, and I'm a student. See, that's one thing about us a lot of times as Black people. We don't want to be students. I'm a student when I watch their stuff because I'm like, dang, now I'm in the classroom. Do you know that social media, and this is my rant, do you know that social media has gotten us spoiled? It's because Jackie and I, we were talking about this yesterday. It's gotten us spoiled because you know what? I remember a time that you had to pay big money to listen to a Dr. CBS. Man. That you had to pay money to listen to Dr. Ball or Burroughs or whatever. Right. You had to travel. You had to go to the school. Man. You had to sit in their class.
You had to stand in line.
You had to stand in line, and you wasn't even guaranteed to even get that class. So, so for them to be as accessible as they are to us, we need to be grateful for that, and we need to support our scholarship, man. So, anyway, that's it.
Yeah. So listen. So listen. This is why we do what we do, because we respect the people who we are in this community with. Jared brought up a Ajamu Baraka. We got a whole nother story about Ajamu Baraka. But these are the people who
he's in the 21st dimension right now.
He's in the 24th dimension.
Oh, the 24th, right? Yeah, he moved up. Yeah.
I hope that he's approving of our behavior.
That's a inside joke. We'll share it with you one day. But right now, Ajamu Baraka is in the 24th dimension. He's just chilling out there.
He's just chilling.
He'll be back down here.
Looking down on all of us mortals, like I approve. But I hope anyway. But anyway, look, we're just cutting up now, y'all. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us. We pay attention to electoral politics because they are important. They do impact our everyday lives, and national electoral politics look different from state level electoral politics, from local electoral politics, and we have to understand the differences. We have to understand how they are similar, right. And we have to understand how they impact us all and where we fit in the whole scheme of things, and how we can use politics as a tool in this arsenal of struggle. So, Dr. Let me see. I can't. It's taking me time to stop doing this. But Jared says that 8:00 tonight, the Ear Doctor is going to be live with Sundays. So we'll be in here dancing. We're not going to stream that. You don't want to see that. That's horrible because he cannot dance.
I'm Sano's devoid of funk. For those of you who are a certain age, remember that. I'm Sano's devoid of funk. I can't swim. I never could swim.
But look, y'all, we really appreciate y'all. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate the chats. We appreciate the time you've spent with us. We will keep you apprised of all the political shenanigans going on and some other stuff. What are the Lukmans cooking up for this week for Black Power Media? We are going to talk about why the Lukmans are Pan-Africanists later on this week. Friday, we're not sure what we're going to be doing on Friday at 5:00.
I mean, we might do goulash. Who knows what we're going to do? Who knows? And this what keeps it fun for us is that like even today, it keeps it fun for us. Like we'll see something and we'll be like, okay, let's go to BPM and see if if anybody's broadcasting right now, because we got something we got to say. So so this is how we like to do it. We don't like to be too rigid, too structured. And we come at it with all love and all the intentions of just connecting with our folk. So that's what's up.
Yep. So thanks a lot. We appreciate you. As the eternal chairman Fred Hampton always said, I say to you, peace, if you are willing to fight for it, and we have got to fight for it. So we'll check you all out later.
And 100 and some people, man, get them likes up.
That's right.
I know where you live. I know where you live.
Oh no. We're not visiting people. Bye, y'all. Oh.
How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. Had them on long before it dial up. How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Poe believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Todd told the valet pull the truck round. Push the line after we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel